unusual to have a fireside chat next to a real fire. Good morning, everyone. This is an absolute pleasure for me because I was introduced to Carl 5 years ago. 5 years of building a company is a long time, as many of you founders know, and we know there's a lot of founders in the audience. So our plan is perhaps over the next 20 minutes together to describe that period. But let's start with the time we met. So the first lesson perhaps for the founders is we were introduced during COVID. So in 2020, we were introduced by Tony Fadell, which is interesting for the founders. This is a lot stronger signal than just reaching out on LinkedIn. When you hear particularly VCs kind of question hardware, it's so important you get a good referral. But Carl and Nothing was the first investment I ever made for GV without actually meeting. We didn't meet face to face, it was all done over Zoom. So maybe Carl, you could sort of kick off and describe your journey. The thing that struck me, the question I ask a lot is, does this founder have founder market fit? Is this founder uniquely placed to solve this problem? So maybe tell the audience what the problem you said you were going to solve is and what your experience was that took you to that point.
Yeah, if we take a step back, I've always been a tech fan. I remember when I was 12, I grew up in Sweden, so not too far away from here. I got the first iPod, and it was such a magical product, and it kind of ties back to Tony Fadell. I was probably the first kid in my school to get the iPod, and I remember all the kids were like, hey, what's this? And then a couple years later, I was first among my friends to get the iPhone. So these products really got me interested in this industry. It felt like every generation got better and better, and I felt really optimistic about the future where consumer devices could take us. And that led to a career in the mobile industry. Before Nothing, I helped start another company called OnePlus. We grew it to about $3 billion in 7 years. Also a smartphone company, but in end of 2020, I wanted to have something more independent, because I saw that the world of technology, especially consumer tech, was going to change, and I wanted to have full control over the vision to get there.
And it's amazing to bridge this experience. I can't think of many other founders that kind of have the design and brand and marketing sensibility of the West, and then have actually experienced supply chain in Asia. What are a couple of things you learned from each of those regions?
Yeah, I think it's hard to not mention Apple in this context, because over the last 15, 20 years, Apple has really built up the supply chain in China. And I was fortunate, so I grew up in Stockholm, but I moved to South China in 2011 and stayed there for 10 years. That's how I got to learn about the supply chain and hardware and all that stuff with my previous company. The insight was the quality is really good, like quality and talent. You can get things done quickly, good quality for the product, and also very efficient price. But it was quite challenging to do creative things out of there. I think it's just, the talent is just not there yet. And my thesis was, what if we were based in UK instead, in London? There's a lot of creative talent, and if we match the creative talent of the UK with the engineering efficiency, supply chain efficiency of China, maybe we can create a company where the 1 plus 1 becomes more than the sum of its parts. So that was the thesis in the beginning, and 5 years down the line, I think we've proven that out. Like, we ship products at a very fast velocity, but also we have world-class designs. Like, every product we ship has won some kind of international design award.
I remember writing the first memo describing the investment, and I almost described it as the culture would have kind of exploring ideas in the West and then exploiting the business and building them out actually in Asia. And you did an amazing job. It's not just China, it's India as well.
Yeah, India is a very exciting opportunity. I think the Indian economy is growing very quickly, and when the economy grows, people expect more from the products they buy. So in the early stage of a country's growth, people are looking for functional benefits of a product. Hey, my apartment is really hot. I have air conditioning. That's great. But as the economy grows, people kind of start moving up Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and they want more emotional benefits or emotional value from the products they purchase. And I think that's why India has been such a great opportunity for us because with our design, with our software, we're really playing into that so-called premiumization of the consumer. India is a big market for us. This year we're doing about 2% of the market for total smartphones in the country. And as a result of that, we've had to build a team in India for sales and marketing, but also for manufacturing. We saw very early on that India was a rising hub for global electronics manufacturing as well. And we've started manufacturing there even since our first phone in 2022. And when we just started, it was very tough. Our products have transparent design, so you can see the inside of the product. And if you think about it, it's actually quite difficult to manufacture because even a speck of dust will be visible, like every speck of dust will be visible to the consumer. If we made an iPhone, it's a metal finish on the back. You can't really see what's inside. So when we first started manufacturing in India, the entire ecosystem wasn't very mature. But now we really helped level up the infrastructure. So if you go to one of our factories there, it's all like clean room. Like first you put on like a suit and you go into a chamber where they blow air at you and they try and blow the dust away. And then when you look at our production line, it's like every part of the production line is a self-contained unit. People wear suits, there's very high humidity, and there's actually water on the ground, and there's a fan on top, so all the dust gets blown to the ground. Like, we really upgraded the manufacturing there.
I think one of the interesting things when you're looking at a startup and for you founders is just got to remember that you need to be doing hard things. If it was easy, everyone would be doing it and it would be a commodity. And one of the amazing things about what Carl's done is he's done so many different hard things to get to where nothing is today. So talking about that sort of cumulative progress, you've done over $1 billion worth of sales. You've got 7 million devices out there. I know you feel strongly that hardware is becoming more important over time, not less important. Why is that?
Yeah, if we go back to our early days, like why did we pick the smartphone? Because the smartphone is the most important digital device that we use every day. Be it the shipment volume, like 1.2 billion are sold every year, but also the time duration that we use the product for every day. It's a bit different depending on country, but on average 4 or 5 hours a day on the smartphone. And we said, hey, if we are able to scale a business like this, surely there's opportunities for distribution because our products will be in the hands of a lot of people. But in the early days, we didn't know what that would look like. We were just really focused on getting the infrastructure set up and getting the growth to a certain stage. But now, with the world changing, with AI becoming a big thing, I think there's very interesting things we can start doing on the software and services side.
Yeah, that's amazing. So November 2022, ChatGPT was launched, sudden adoption. How do you think that's actually shaped smartphones and hardware?
Now I think there's almost a complete consensus within the tech industry that the operating system will change. Like the current operating systems that we use, be it iOS or macOS or Windows, they are, from a UX perspective, they're very old. They look better than before. The animations are prettier, it's like more 3D rendering stuff, but the UX is still pretty much the same. But in the age of AI, I think we can create a way more intelligent operating system that helps us remove all the admin work from our lives so we can focus on the things that we're really passionate about. So that's what we're now embarking on to build.
Yeah, it feels like there's a couple of vectors there. I mean, one of the interesting things about AI and software becoming ubiquitous is the value is accruing, we think, at GV to people that have data for fine-tuning, but then also people that have distribution. And this 7 million installed base is amazing distribution. There's a couple of ways that I think large language models are particularly interesting for smartphones and audio devices. And I guess the first is kind of on-device inference, this idea that the device will become an edge node. How are some ways that you see that maybe playing out?
Yeah, if we think about how things will develop, I don't know if you remember, maybe it's like 20 years ago, Steve Jobs had a slide with the Mac in the middle and all these peripheral devices around the Mac. They call it the digital hub strategy. And then about 10 years later, they pivoted to a cloud-first strategy with iCloud in the middle and all these Apple devices around iCloud. I think where we're going next is it's going to be context in the middle. So personal context, because over time we will come to understand that the more context we can feed the AI, the better it can help us. So there's a major challenge here in trust and security, because if we're going to give up more and more of our data, it's actually pretty scary. Therefore, I think it's going to be a blend of a cloud and edge. Like the most secure, the most private data should be on device, and you can selectively choose what to share with the cloud. I think the main benefit is privacy, but there's also cost benefits of taking some of the inference away from the cloud onto device.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. And actually some specific examples. So I guess the first would be large language models. Obviously natural language has been important in building them. That's been the training set of data, which is essentially the web. But the interesting thing is that means that natural language becomes a new UX paradigm. How do you think about that? Are we going to converse with machines using natural language more? Is voice the new UX in the same way perhaps the graphic user interface was for the desktop revolution?
I guess I'm a bit contrarian when it comes to voice. I like voice, but I believe that humans are visual creatures. We process information visually much faster than through our ears. So I still think the primary user interface will be GUI, but it's just going to be a modern version of the GUI, unlike the current operating systems we see today. However, I think voice is a great input, right? It's very natural for us to speak. We read a little bit slower, we hear a little bit slower than we can read. So I think the ideal is going to be voice in, but GUI out.
Yeah, I love that. And actually, the thing that's interesting about voice in is it should be much richer in data than text in because of intonation, because of speed, velocity.
Emotions.
Emotions, we'll start to be able to read that. So richer in through voice and then maybe GUI out is your thesis.
Yeah, it depends on the device. If you only have a device without a screen, then it's probably voice. But in general, voice in, GUI out.
Got it. And then the edge node, the smartphone, it blows my mind that my Nothing 3 has more than 100 million times the speed of, say, the Apollo 11 computers that put people on the moon. More and more is going to happen actually on that device. We've talked about how the personal assistant will be ubiquitous. Mm-hmm. Will we start to have personal assistants in nothing headphones? It's got the compute potentially.
We are excited about the prospects of this, but we think the most exciting thing to work on right now is enabling everybody with an idea to make software. So I think the assistant is a little bit further down the line in the roadmap. I think right now we're really excited about people using natural language to just describe the app they want to see on their phones, and then they can deploy it and it shows up.
Yeah, makes sense. So actually just switching to one of the other real sort of takeoffs in generative AI is generation, so diffusion models and large language models for example, websites, Bolt.new, Lovable, all of these amazing companies. Do we get to a stage where applications become more ephemeral? Do we get to a point where actually we're kind of spinning up apps for a single use and then they fall away again? Describe what that might look like in a few years.
Yeah, it's going to sound counterintuitive, but today, if you're a software developer and your app only has one DAU, you consider the app a failure. But I think in the future, if your one DAU loves the product, that's perfect because the cost of making software is going to drop. I believe in the future that the smartphone will only have one app. The one app is the OS. It's going to do everything for you, but it's going to take some time to get there. We need to bring people along the journey. So the rough roadmap is step one, allow people to use natural language to create software. And this really kind of opens up the breadth of software developers. Everybody with an idea, with a creative use case can make an app for themselves. And then today we have people manually place the apps onto their phone. But through gathering data along this process, we can start to predict. You're this type of user, so we think you might need these kind of apps that other people in the community have built. I think that's one step towards the OS being predictive and generative, and it's a step-by-step process to get to the final stage where one app or one OS for the entire device.
It makes sense to me as you have more and more context that you move to a world where you have proactive creation rather than reactive to the consumer's needs. So it sounds like you're making a real sort of case for why smartphones will stay while they persist. If that's true, do you think OpenAI and X will have smartphones? How can they not if distribution is everything?
I don't work there, so I don't know, but yeah, it would seem strange for them not to do it. I think if you're an AI lab that cares about consumer, I think that's going to be important. So I think likely, but if you're more enterprise, maybe more unlikely.
Yeah, makes sense. And actually, it's also a case why you can understand, given the kind of OS lock-in, why a lot of people have tried to do an alternative to a smartphone, like Rabbit and Humane tried really interesting new product directions. Do you expect to see other companies trying to do stuff that replaces the smartphone?
I'm very excited about the next couple of years in consumer tech because we're going to see an explosion of new form factors and experiments. If we go back to the context idea, like all these devices are either here to help us capture more context or help us execute on the context. In that paradigm, the smartphone is still very important because it's a super context-rich device. We do so much on it. However, the smartphone is not always on us. Sometimes it's in our pocket, sometimes we're walking in town. So I think when consumers understand that the more context they can feed in, the better output they get, that's when new hardware form factors are going to emerge because they will be complements to the smartphone. So I think the early experiments with the Rabbit, with Humane, we should encourage more of these. And in the next couple of years, we're going to see a lot of these new products. We're certainly also thinking about like what other devices can we build to help people capture more context. And we're going to start sharing some of those ideas with the world next year.
Yeah, I love that. So if you sort of frame the hardware as a means of gathering context, one way of thinking about it would be it doesn't make sense to have something that just does the smartphone's job because that's the edge node, that becomes the center of the network, but start to create devices that might be used when the smartphone's not around, perhaps something for sleep or something when you're actually relaxing and listening to music. I mean, one of the things that I think has been an interesting tension in what you've done is, if you look at the average person, each of us taps our phone or interacts with our phone kind of 2,500 times a day. The most is about 5,000 times a day. Smartphone OEMs presumably think that's a good thing, but you've often spent time trying to get people with nothing and nothing OS to use their phone less. How do you sort of manage that tension?
Yeah, I think it's like, if we look at what people are tapping, there's like so-called waste time apps and save time apps. Waste time apps are more like entertainment, things that entertain us like YouTube or TikTok or Spotify. And save time apps are more utilities, things we just want to get done and move away from. So I hope that if people are going to tap that much on their phones, let's have them tap on things that give them joy, that give them more fun in their lives. And all these admin things, these save time apps, let's just take it all away.
Okay, maybe a framework I've not heard we've never spoken about before, but you can imagine kind of Maslow's hierarchy, and the job to be done in the OS is to do the stuff at the bottom of the pyramid so that you can actually move up and do the creativity or learning or enjoyment, the stuff that actually doesn't kind of get in the way.
100%. We're super excited about creativity. Like, I think that's humanity's superpower. So the more we can remove admin and let people be their creative selves, the better.
We got last 5 minutes, and I want to make sure we cover some advice for founders. There's a lot out there. So maybe I'll pick off a couple of questions and you could share some of your learnings. Sure. So the first one is, Nothing is an incredibly global organization now. You've got a team in London, India, you've got someone recently in the Middle East, I think. Yep. Like, how do you manage a team globally? How do you think about structuring it so you have one brand and the team functions well together?
Yeah, it's definitely challenging, but the first principle thinking here is that it's not by random, it's by design. Like, where are the best people for that specific role in the world? As we think about design, as we think about brand, I think London is great. All the luxury fashion houses are Europe-based, so London is a great hub even for brand and marketing, not just design. Hardware, Shenzhen is great. Like, we've been trained by Apple for many years. Now that we're thinking about doing more software, I think it makes sense to start having a presence between San Francisco and London as well, because we just want to tap into the best talent. That's why we did this, but then managing it is hard. Different cultures, different time zones. I think culture is really important, making sure that people are aware of what type of company we're trying to build, and even if their work styles are different, that everybody can see the same end goal.
I think one of the things we see in the portfolio is just the importance of bringing a distributed team together to put social capital in the bank, to make sure the business is aligned. And the other thing, I think the biggest trap is people just assuming you should do it because it's lower cost in some way, because it has extra costs. You have to invest more in communication, all of that good stuff.
And also, I think I'm very passionate about this in person. We're doing, like, if you're going to do something very ambitious, very difficult, where you need to creatively maneuver different problems all the time, especially in hardware, I just don't see it working if you're a remote team.
Yeah, I kind of feel like if it's a business that needs to be full stack, so everything works together, your team needs to be kind of full stack by working together. It's like the API of in-person interactions is so much better than digital.
And this is kind of controversial now, I think.
Yeah, it is, it is. I think another, just in the final couple of minutes, you've actually done it, and it reminds me of Slush here. They have an amazing kind of group of over 1,000 volunteers that do an amazing job of making sure this event is fantastic. You, I think more than any other smartphone OEM and manufacturer and brand, have actually embraced the crowd and the community. Give us a quick example of that. How's it worked?
Yeah, so the biggest change in the last 40 years in the world has been the rise of the consumer internet. And with the consumer internet, anybody, anywhere can become an expert at anything if they're passionate about it. So we have a thesis that over time, the barriers between a fan, a community member, and the team member who works internally is going to blur. So we've been trying to build towards this. Like when we did the Series A together, we allowed our community to also become shareholders. We've done that a couple of times. We have like 8,000 people, like regular consumers on the cap table. We have one on the board that gets elected by the community every year. And now we began to co-create products with them. So last year we had a phone where the community did the industrial design, the color material finish, the marketing, the creative assets, the launch. So over time, we're going to deepen the involvement of the community in the company's governance, but also in the product development.
It's been amazing to see. And actually, I feel like this is another advantage of AI. It will democratize the ability for people to be creative and maybe contribute to nothing as the brand. Last few seconds, maybe you could share one or two final pieces of advice for the founders in the audience.
Yeah, I think, look, it's hard doing a startup. So I just wanted to say that if you're facing something very difficult, and if it feels like the world is kind of crashing in on you, just know that it's going to be better. Like, we've had a lot of those cases in our past, but looking back at the problems we had before, when it felt like the biggest problem in the world, they seem like tiny problems now. So just hold on, and it's going to get better.
It's a great note to end on. Carl, thank you so much.
Thank you.